Good evening and welcome to the October edition of the Poetry Playhouse Open Mic Series. And we're about 5.5 years into this series, and we much appreciate you tuning in. Today, we're going to be highlighting the New Mexico Poetry Anthology, and it's edited by the inaugural New Mexico State Poet Laureate, Levi Romero, and by Emeritus Albuquerque Poet Laureate, Michelle Otero. It's published by the Museum of New Mexico Press in conjunction with the New Mexico State Library Poetry Center. This is a beautiful, hefty volume, which has, very ample margins to I think, properly present the poet's work. It's a fun book to browse. It makes a great holiday gift, hint, hint. And we tonight are going to be hearing from a number of poets who are in this anthology, both in the first hour and some also in the second hour. And I'll put this down. The New Mexico State Poetry Anthology is organized according to 11 themes: community, culture, family, history, identity, landscape, nature, people, querencia, favorite place or place of refuge, spirituality, and always important here, water. Included are poets from across this fifth largest state by area, from diverse communities and backgrounds, who write in various poetic styles and genres. So we'd like to begin with a short conversation with the editors, Levi and Michelle. If you would unmute. I'm not seeing Michelle. Oh, here she is. Okay. Yeah. So I was just wondering if you guys could tell us a little bit about the inception of this book. How did it come about? What was the impetus?
Yeah, well, good evening, everybody. As my duties as the inaugural New Mexico State Poet Laureate, one of the duties was to produce an anthology. And having worked on various other anthologies in the past, I realized like the magnitude of what that task would be like. And I talked to the folks over at the Division of Cultural Arts at the New Mexico State Library. And I said, hey, an anthology sounds great and everything, but I think I'm going to need some help. And so I'd like to see if I could get a co-editor to work with me. And they said, sure, absolutely. And like I've said in the past before, I didn't have to think hard or long. Thought of Michelle right away, just her breadth and expertise and familiarity with the poetry landscape across New Mexico. Also, that I wanted it to be a bilingual anthology. And so Michelle is bilingual herself. And so that's kind of how it all came about. I contacted Michelle, and pobrecita, she said yes. So off we went to the races.
Michelle, were there surprises along the way or things that turned out differently than you initially conceived of?
Yeah, there was this pandemic.
Little thing, little
surprise. So I think, and that just kind of, I just like slowed everything down and threw a wrench into things. I mean, it made it a great time to read because we slowed down, but just even our ability to kind of get together. So we were, I think, creative about how we met up. So I think we had a couple of like like meetings on the portal of my house and the patio of Levi's house, and just socially distanced with all of these poems between us. That was, and I think it shouldn't have been a surprise, but just the volume of poetry that we received, and from so many, from every part of the state, and from like the usual suspects, like some folks you'll hear this evening, and some folks whose names are familiar, and then other people who it was their first submission or their first publication. And because they were blind submissions, we didn't know whose work we were reading when we were reading it. That was another really beautiful surprise once we did the acceptances and kind of knew who went with each poem. That was a little bit like Christmas. It was just fun to be like, oh my gosh, this person's going to be in there, and who's this person, and oh goodness, that person's only like 18 years old, or look, here's a state senator, here's a poet laureate. So it was all kinds of fun to discover that, and then to also realize like, oh, there's some folks that I know in completely different settings, and they write poetry, and their work is in here too. So
yeah, great. I think if I'd have to guess, I'd say the majority, maybe the vast majority of anthologies present the work alphabetically according to the last name of the poets, which is frankly easier. And you both chose, a more exacting task, which is to organize the book according to themes, and not just 3 or 4, but 11 themes. And maybe could you tell me a little bit about the conversation that went into that?
Yeah, so we came up with these different themes. I added some themes, Michelle added some themes. We had some other themes, some got taken out. And then again, the task to put everything together, we made it a little bit harder on ourselves because, yeah, it would have been easier to just do something in alphabetical order. But when we had to divide the poems up as equally as possible based on themes, some themes, for example, may have had a lot more poems in them than some of the other themes. And so then we had to kind of move things around a little bit to make sure that they all fit in and that there was more of a balance. But that was kind of part of the fun too, and the challenge. And it made us, I think, to even look at the poetry that was coming in or that had come in that much closer. So yeah, it was a little bit more challenging, but we made it challenging on ourselves too.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think maybe we might have even talked for a little while about how do we divide things up, or is it organized geographically? And I actually think the state gets divided up that way a lot anyway, where it's like there's southern New Mexico, and then there's northern New Mexico, and Albuquerque's its own thing, and Santa Fe is its own thing, and so I think we both really kind of love how the themes really tied people together. Like anyone in the state can write about water, and they're going to at it differently depending on where they're situated, or what body of water they're closest to, and how that's changed over time. Like everyone has a querencia here, even if they might call it something different in, Roswell than they do, say, in Dixon.
Yeah. And I was just going to ask you if you could talk a little bit about that term. And I guess there's a bullfighting meaning to it. There's other community meanings to it, but how did why did you embrace that particular term? And that's the only Spanish term of the 11, I think. So, yeah.
And of course there's acequias and other words like that fall under some of those other categories too. But it's a term that I've been exploring for a number of years in my own work. And then I teach a class at UNM called Querencia, Home, Place, and Identity. I co-published an anthology called Querencia, Reflections on the New Mexico Homeland. It's a concept that I grew up with, which means really the place where you're born and raised. That's really pretty much the typical standard definition. But when people start writing about it or kind of presenting their own sense of place, and how Querencia is the place where you feel nurtured, where you feel like you belong, those kinds of things, then it can go in all kinds of other directions. Querencia is not just about place, it's about a sense of being. And so we just thought that it was a great term to be able to use for this anthology, the sense of querencia, being Nuevo Mexicano, living in New Mexico, and how people that come here and over time, and sometimes it's a long time, sometimes it's not a very long time, but eventually make Nuevo Mexico their querencia. They feel at home here. They feel safe. They feel like they belong. They feel nurtured. So yeah, I thought it was we both thought it was very applicable.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say about the book before we get to the readings?
Books, the New Mexico Poetry Anthology makes a great gift for any.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, like
And
people-
we're really close. We're really close to that holiday shopping.
Exactly. I mean, you might as well get several copies now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christmas is coming up again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, thank you both. And I'm going to turn things over to Levi, who is going to start the ball rolling.
all right, thank you. Yeah, so Michelle and I have developed a format that we've used for a lot of the readings as part of the New Mexico Poetry Anthology. And what we do is that I'll introduce the evening. Sometimes I'll read a poem, which I'm going to read tonight, and then I'll introduce the first poet, and then that poet introduces the poet that follows them, and then it goes in that order until the end, and then Michelle provides the closure at the end, and she'll read a poem too as well. So I'm going to start off with the introduction, and then I will introduce the first poet. The first poet happens to be someone who I consider a paisano, who lived in Dixon for a number of years. He now lives in Oregon, but Robert Arrellano will follow me. So, Santas y buenas tardes, les de Dios. I want to begin by thanking the Museum of New Mexico Press for helping to create this important and amazing volume of poetry. In addition, gracias also to the folks at the New Mexico State Library Center and the New Mexico's Department of Cultural Affairs for their initial support. Agradecimientos especially to Jules Nyquist and John Roche for hosting this event. Thank you, Jules Poetry Playhouse. I especially want to thank Albuquerque Poet Laureate Emerita Michelle Otero for accepting my invitation to serve as co-editor of the New Mexico Poetry Anthology 2023. Gracias, Michelle, for your unyielding dedication to the promotion of the anthology. The New Mexico Poetry Anthology 2023 is a multiplicity of voices reflecting the complexity and layers of culture, history, spirituality, and poetic expression that is uniquely Nuevo Mexico. No one voice is more important than another, whether they are published writers or closet poets who simply write for the love of writing. These voices rise as a canto, singing the joys, sorrows, and praises of individual experiences to form a poetry collective that encompasses the poetic cultural landscape that is New Mexico. This evening's reading will feature 14 poets whose work exemplifies how poetry creates community and brings people together to celebrate our love for nuestra querencia, our New Mexico homeland. Muchísimas gracias, poetas. And so I'm going to begin with this first poem. It's entitled Nightstand Testimonio. Nightstand Testimonio. A bulto of San Tonino on the nightstand, the beloved safekeeper of infants and children. Oh, niño precioso, de Atocha llamado, tú socorres siempre al desamparado. Propped up by their spines, a row of books supporting each other, two book jackets Caramelo and Underground, My Life with SDS and the Weatherman. Orphaned and sandwiched between Una Biblia and books long ago half read, whose titles keep open the doors of procrastination. Echoes of the Flute, The Old Man's Love Story, Salvation on Mission Street, Keeping the Quiet, Meatballs for the People, Manuel Bandiera, Selected Poems, magazines thumbed through, saved, for what purpose? The History of Rock, The New Yorker, Lowrider Magazine, Selena Newsweek feature, Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan, his 100 greatest songs, Time Magazine, 100 photographs, the most influential images of all time, Tattoo Mark, an opened envelope with 2 photographs, Tio Alfonso and Tio Antonio on Grama Juanita's porch, summer 1970. Cousins Hillary, Valerie, Panchita, Jerry, and Gerald, summer 1970. One comic book, The Amazing Spider-Man, Secret Origins. A pair of dulled lens reading glasses. A dog-eared anthology submission. A Sudoku number puzzle, a For the Love of Lavender pouch gifted from a friend, a keepsake museum brochure from San Miguel de Allende, an unused writing journal for poems that came in the night but were gone by morning. Oh, niño precioso, de Atocha llamado, tus ojos siempre al desamparado. And tonight's first poet, or I guess if I count as a poet, the second poet, Robert Arellano. Robert Bob Arellano is the author of 7 novels, including Havana Lunar, a finalist for the Edgar Allan Poe Award, and the New Mexico Noir Curse the Names. He has taught writing in the Institute of American Indian Arts, UNM Taos, and the Taos Writers Conference and Southern Oregon University. Bob and his wife Jody live in Dixon for several years, and their sons David and Zane were born about a mile from the Rio Grande. Robert Arellano.
Thank you, Levi, and thank you for that beautiful poem to kick things off. And I love being here with everyone. And Michelle, thank you, and University of New Mexico Press, especially for allowing people who had lived in New Mexico for some time and then moved elsewhere to submit. I just thought that was a very nice decision, not just because I got to submit. After living many years by the Rio Grande and the Rio Embudo, I now live nearby the Rio Picaro, I call it. It's the Rogue River in Southern Oregon, and that's where I teach at Southern Oregon University, the SOU Raiders. So I'm going to read A Dogleg in Time, and then after me, I will be introducing Rose Bernal, who's reading on behalf of Coral Dawn Bernal. So you're on deck, Rose. Here's my poem from the Querencia section. A Dogleg in Time. 2 gaps in the adobe wall that surrounds our plaza. I can see both from a spot just inside my kitchen. One is straight 100 yards from the house, at the bend that makes everyone slow down on the way into town. The other gap is left, just 50 feet from my window. Passing the first is passing through the past. Passing the second is passing into the present. I am sweating at 6 a.m., been gone 2 weeks. Ragwood grew 6 feet. No gas in the weed whacker, so pull out the old scythe, whack the weeds. Keep the bee plants with their purple flowers. See a car coming from the first bend, the beat-up Plymouth, belonging to Joey Valdez, that turned back the day I flipped him off for almost running me over. It disappears behind the long wall belonging to St. Anthony. It passes the next gap and turns into a Grand Am. driven by a handsome grandfather. Clean shirt, mustache, chiseled features out of a Jim Vogel painting. Nicer car, older man, 40 years pass out of sight behind a 100-foot length of wall. The old man parks, gets out, sees my scythe, and looks at ragweed high as our heads, shakes his. Mucho trabajo. Sí. Te he visto por allí, pero no nos hemos conocido. He walks up, shakes my hand. Por alguna razón no nos hemos conocido todavía. Soy Silviano Romero. Te he visto allí, trabajando en el techo. He looks at the scythe. I say, I'm using a weed whacker from last century. It worked for me when I was a kid. In a novel about modern times, death could be personified by a cheerful neighbor who gasses up his weed whacker every Sunday and gets started around 5:45, wearing work boots and ear protection. He catches you, following a cup of coffee onto your portal in tattered slippers. What do you do? We talk for a while, agreeing it's a lot of work, but I am blessed to have this house. Silviano Romero, pasa por mi casa. Si quieres, vivo allá, 2 millas por el camino. I ask, ¿cuál camino? ¿El de Dixon o de Embudo? Oh, he says, this all used to be Embudo. Gracias. Now, Coral Dawn Bernal, red coral flower, was born on June 24, 1987, and made her spirit journey on July 18, 2020. Born to Carpio, Taos Pueblo, and Rose Bernal, Canada, Coral enjoys a rich family background and is very active in her cultural traditions, often the subject of her poetry. Coral has represented Taos in national poetry competitions, received the inaugural UNM Native Writers Award, among other awards, and has been a favorite on the slam poetry scene. And reading on behalf of Coral, please join me in welcoming Rose Bernal. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Good. Good evening, everyone. It's really an honor to be here. We're here representing my daughter, Coral Dawn Bernal. She's the person whose work was submitted for the Poetry Anthology and was accepted. So we want to thank Levi, Romero, Michelle Otero, the New Mexico State Library, Poetry Center, Museum of New Mexico Press, Santa Fe, for publishing Coral's work. And I have my son here, CJ.
Hi, everyone. I'm CJ Bernal. I'm Coral's brother. And, you know, we actually, we're really fortunate to have recovered and gathered an archive of over 1,000 works of poetry that Coral wrote throughout her life. So we're in the process of you know, really solidifying that archive of her body of work to publish a book in the future of her work. We were also really fortunate to have an archive, a digital archive of recordings from different performances that she did throughout her life. And one of those pieces happens to be Movement, which is in the New Mexico Poetry Anthology. So I'm going to try this out, and I think it's going to work. We're going to actually play the recording from my phone of her reading the poem herself. And is there anything else you want to add before I
just
play
a
it?
picture.
And this is a picture of my sister. Her name was Coral Bernal. And she was very passionate about her culture, her cultural ways, her creativity in life, her writing. And we just would like to continue our journey as her family to share her work, even though she's passed on to the spirit world. So we, again, like to thank Levi, Romero, and everyone who was a part of creating this amazing book with all these talented artists. involved in it and writers. So with that, we'll start playing the poem. I hope it translates from the phone to the thing. I think it will. But this is Movement by Coral Bernal.
I guess I just have one more. Yeah, it's called Movement. If you are the bird of day, I am the bird's sleek feathers. If you are sunset's fire, I am Mesa's golden edges. If you are a well-crafted dream catcher, I am the silver sinew that binds it. If you are water's ripples, I am a stone beneath them. If you are brown skin and soul, I am pure bone and flesh. If you are rainbow waves, I am black printed fish. If you are a rising sun, I am dawn's first kiss. If you are a still silent air, I am a raging wind. If you are rushing bodies, I am blood of sin. If you are a spider's gray web, I am the place where it lives. If you are a long felt itch, I am the place where it is. If you are shards of pottery, I am the painted mica bits. If you are stacked bricks of earth, I am that structure's shadow. If you are an onyx hole, I am a rattle-shaped end. If you are electrical wiring, I am clouds shooting lightning. If you are cups of light, I am spoonfuls of velocity. If you are the moon signs, I am reflective outlines. If you are fresh cut cedar, I am the dried away smoke. If you are the sweet oak, I am roots of milk. If you are the last sight, I am the first kill. Thank you.
So yeah, that was her poem. And I don't know if there's anything to add.
I'll just add one thing in the anthology itself. There's one line, because the last time Coral performed this work, she wrote something on the back of the paper, and so that would be, if you are a poet's paper, I am the black flowing ink. So we felt it was fitting to include that in the submittal. And I'm really happy that it was published.
The
next person who is up is Taylor Lang Cooper from Velarde.
Hello, greetings today and this evening for you folks. I am very, very homesick. Let me tell you, I'm very thankful for this evening. I'll go ahead and get started. This is an untitled poem. I'll go ahead and begin. Thunder rolling, roosters crowing, crickets in the reeds, clapping leaves of cottonwoods, a land of saints and thieves, vaquero country, native lands, Zia symbols and Norteño bands, the truest night skies and neon lights. You hold such wisdom. You have seen such fights. Continue on, you sacred land. Your blessed people live on and stand. For justice, for peace, tradition and more. Remember where you've been before. We know such heights, we know such lows. Plant the seeds of Eden and they will grow. Look to the skies and listen to the lands. The answers are there. They'll show you the plan. Humble with virtue, compassion and drive. You all get a taste. Go ahead and just try. Know what you have, an enchanted place. Beautiful people, glorious space. Thank you.
Our next reader is Donley, and we've dropped Jamie's bio into the chat. Thank you, Taylor.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My poem is called Moving to Taos. The cat asks to go outside, inside, outside, all day, all night. I say no to him, coyotes. I go outside at night to marvel at stars, the clarity of the sky. Outside is a magnet. The cat stands at the door, watches me as I stare up. Both of us are waiting. We stand together under the apricot trees. Tiny white feathers blow past, land on his white socks, my gray boots. The feathers sound like stars. The stars sound like feathers, blowing away our old lives. And next up is Heather Frankland.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much. I want to give a big thank you to Don and Jules for hosting this, and Michelle and Levi for doing such a great job. It's really an honor to be part of this anthology. And I'm coming from Silver City, and there's some Silver City people here, so thank you so much for coming, as well as some friends near and far. And I'm actually the poet laureate now of Silver City, so as of May. My poem is in the community section, and then it is called An Education, Late Winter, 2021. Dog footprints in the snow of the bridge. It always stays colder on a bridge. Ice can last for days, make the wood feel unstable, make you think that you could fall into the dry creek bed underneath. Trees are without leaves unless they're juniper, and the free library has its glass broken again by someone who distrusts free books, deeming them only valuable by stealing. The creek below, no water in it for nearly 2 years, only rocks, leaves, and bottles. Further away, needles and used toilet paper, empty chip bags and candy wrappers. Otherwise, the homeless camouflage themselves into the sides of the creek. They wear brown and green. Ahead of me, children run to the playground and basketball courts. They run across the bridge. Not one grabs a side rail. Not one needs to slow down. Cars fill the school's lot. Teachers are back, but still not vaccinated. Further away, past the bridge, my shoes sink into the mud. I laugh self-consciously and walk uphill from it. Once I saw a doe dead here on the side of the road by the speed counting signal near the school. I called numbers and no one would take her. Finally, a sheriff agreed to get her. How long had she been there? Focused eyes, turning glassy. How many students walked by her and called her science? Well, thank you. And on deck is Elena Gonzales, who was the Poet Laureate, Santa Fe Youth Poet Laureate in 2022, and many other accolades which are here in the chat. So thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. This is quite exciting. I'm currently in nursing school, so I've been slowing down the poetry stuff, but this is like incredible. I'm like, wow. So I just feel so lucky. Thank you, Levi, for reaching out to me and making sure I was in the loop. So I'm in Philly right now for nursing school, as it says, but forget it. I'm trying to show you and you can't even see. But yeah, my poem is essentially, you can see, when you see it, this is what the sections look like. It says culture, and then what's the first for culture, and I was all excited when I saw that. I was like, okay. Youth culture, I wrote this when I was in high school. So this is this poem. It's called Mariposa Barbie. You were here when I still felt unblemished. You were here when I didn't know what chaos meant or that we were living in it. Plastic shaped like woman for me. I wasn't yet strong enough to hold the dictionary, so you were placed there instead. Fair skin, blonde hair, and my dirt-covered hands. Not yet old enough to count the number of times that I brushed your blonde hair, but I knew that it was enough times to make me hate mine. I wanted to be you, not just with the sparkly purple fairy wings or with the fairy crown, but with the blue eyes and the slim figure and the blonde hair and the privilege. Your name was Mariposa, and with a name like Mariposa, we needed you to have skin like brilliant aged cocoon, like amber, like brown, like my tias. I needed you to have hair long and black like the beauty that overcomes Mother Earth when the sun goes down. And we needed you to have figures like our mothers and eyes like our abuelas. Your name was Mariposa, but it might as well have been the name of any other skinny white girl on a billboard or a magazine that we're constantly told that we're supposed to be and become. So thank you, Mariposa Barbie, for the adventures, the dreams, the imagination. Thank you, Mariposa Barbie, for introducing me and us to the idea of self-loathing and insecurity. And thank you, Mariposa Barbie, for telling me and teaching me that Spanish names are only acceptable when it is a blue-eyed girl that flaunts them. Hello to Ms. Barbie, astronaut, doctor, model, architect who yelps adios confianza to the little girls who grew up desperate, wanting to be just like you. So if your intention and your plastic purpose was to teach us little girls I can do anything, then why didn't you teach me? And why didn't you teach us? Thank you. And next up, we have Spencer Herrera.
Hold on, I'm getting them up here. Spencer. To find them.
Thank you, Elena.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just looking for them. I got them on the list, but I'm trying to find them on oh, here we go. Spencer, do you want to start your video as well? Let's see where. I'm not able to spotlight Spencer for some reason here.
Well, if he starts talking, I think.
Hey guys, I just heard my name.
All right.
Hi,
Hey.
Spencer.
Hi.
All right.
Can y'all see me? Because I'm in the dark.
Yes, we can see you.
Here,
Okay.
I can spotlight you.
Great.
Okay, there you go.
How's everyone doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Let me just find my piece here. Thanks to Levi and Michelle for hosting this event and putting this book together. I really, really appreciate it. I just have a short piece. I have a haiku, right, which is 575. So I did a little play on words there. A haiku a mi jaina de la 575 from the 575. So if you're familiar with haikus, then you get that reference. You give me the look. Eyes with too much mascara. Chingona y que. So that's my short piece of my contribution to this wonderful anthology. Thank you for including me, and I'm looking forward to continuing to hear some of these wonderful poems.
Okay, next up we have Paula Lozar, which I am adding. So there you go.
Hey, I will have to. I'm glad somebody else wrote a short poem. I was quite blown away by all the other long ones. But there is an advantage to writing a short poem, which is that when Pasadiembo did a review of the book, I was in the side margin here. So that was kind of an unexpected bonus. Anyway, my poem is called March. The pear trees lift their alabaster chalices into the ragged sky that has not yet forgotten how to snow. Will the bees part their fragile petals and nuzzle them into ripening, or will a late storm strip them bare? The secret the nuns know is not the fruit, but the offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. And I'm asking Atalaya to start their videos so I can spotlight them.
Okay,
Here we go. Thank you.
Hi, Atalaya, Magdalena. Yeah, I'm sure there's some documentation of me in the, but whatever. This is, oh, and I should say I feel very honored to have been able to contribute to the anthology and very happy to hear y'all's poems. And maybe a little nervous to read mine, but I want to read a poem called I mean, I've Seen Coco, which is it's one of the pieces in the anthology. It's, I think, timely. In the dorm, in the Midwest, preparing my ritual instruments. A small bottle of ash, the bleached Madonna statue, my lips painted on. Blow a kiss, making the sign of the cross. Gesture the Holy Spirit into an invisible dandelion. In the front lawn, a halo of weeds around the ofrenda. Chairs, drapes, gold string lights, boundary, death. My friend's cousin pours cooking oil on the fire. I throw chimayo dirt on it, show her to do the same, flowering the sacred. She doesn't understand, but she is trying to. I anoint myself like I am trying to blend in. With the melting candles, try to position the Madonna statue. A different woman watches me, asks for me to bless her in my custom pattern gesture. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Then we both try out throwing our quiet kisses like dirt at the loud photos. As we leave the party, I mutter in the driveway. Evicted names, Rosie, Ricky, and Joe, in order of guilt. She says that she won't sleep well tonight because her routine is broken, but I don't need to leave. I smell makeup remover and anointing oil on my finger when I make the sign of the cross again in her bed. Tell her, I'm not really Catholic. I just don't have that many traditions left. And the Catholicism is drag. End this last signage by kissing her cheek and swallowing my white ashes. Yeah, that's the poem. And then I think Mary Morris is the person after me.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Levi, for inviting me. It's quite an honor. And my poem is in the spirituality section. Act of faith. Plant one hyacinth, bulb above water. One day, a single green shoot divides into two strapped leaves. As winter days gather, justice, so close to the brink you nearly reach out to caress it. The red flicker on the other side of your window, while days swim by in dreams and duty, cooking beans, reading mail, alone in a world of lockdown. While one side of this purple flower each day blooms into tiny florets until its entire fist opens lilac, and your house lifts in fragrance. Remember the air, infused with pine, following the deer who appeared at the edge of gold chanterelle. Your mother in her honeysuckle. A sun's full laughter, building forts in the arroyo behind juniper, and beans on the stove frothing like black rosary beads. While the flower crown in the center of your house of God fuses the air you breathe with remembrance, and you are hungry, and you eat. Thank you. So I'm not sure if I have the right order here.
Yep. Our next reader is Carmela Scorcia Pacheco. And we've dropped Carmela's bio into the chat. Although, Carmela, update, you have a PhD. You're no longer a candidate. And you joined Dr. Jules Nyquist.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Levi. Thank you for hosting this event. It's an honor to be in the anthology. This poem is called Querido Nuevo México. Querido Nuevo México, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? ¿Vas a acordarse de tus antepasados? ¿Cuál historia vas a contar? ¿Vas a tratar a la madre tierra, tu tierra sagrada, como tus hijitos? ¿O vas a abandonar los ranchos? Ahorita corre el agua por las acequias, pero ¿qué tal mañana? Querido Nuevo México, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? ¿Vas a acordarse de todas tus mujerotas, de sus historias, como mi mamá, regando la tierra, su huerta, cortando árboles, haciendo cercos, cosechando y dando las manzanas a los demás? ¿Qué tal las mujerotas de ayer? Alcarita Medina, la que cantaba corridos para juntar su comunidad de mujeres en Taos, la que por su voz y su música luchaba por las mujeres, la que cantó el corrido, la votación. Querido Nuevo México, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? ¿Vas a acordarse de tus vecinos, como nuestro vecino don Roberto Villalpando, el que siempre nos platicaba y nos tocaba el arpa, que nunca sabría que tuviera un PhD, que escribió la primera historia literaria de Nuevo México, que hizo posible la reviva de los matachines y comanches en Alcalde, que luchó por los derechos de bilingüismo, que no quiso que nuestro lenguaje se desapareciera. Querido Nuevo México, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? ¿Quién va a cosechar su capulín y quiénes van a hacer su vino? Vas a tener que acordarse cuándo cosechar la chimajá por los días de Cuaresma, mija. Y cómo se mira y pa' dónde se encuentra la sabrosa hierbita por su tierra, por la tierra seca, mija. Y no le quites toda la hierba de la tierra, tiene que crecer todavía. También no te olvides de tus montes sagrados, que por los finales de verano hay que cosechar el oshá. Pero ten cuidado, hay otra planta, el water hemlock, que se parece mucho al oshá, pero es venenosa. Y no le quites todo el oshá, también tiene que crecer más. Y mija, la trementina se cosecha de los sabrosos árboles de piñón para hacer el ungüento. Pero mija, cuídate mucho y guarda los momentos de los piñones en tu corazón, porque no todo dura para siempre. Querido Nuevo México, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? ¿Quién va a contar sus historias de brujas, de las bolas de lumbre y los tecolotes que te miran y te dan señas por la medianoche y las enseñanzas que vienen con todas las historias que hay? Sigan con sus historias, no tengas vergüenza de tu lenguaje, de tu cultura. Querido Nuevo México, mija, mijo, te pregunto, ¿pa' dónde vas? Gracias. And the next presenter is Laura Tohe. Is it Tohe?
It is Tohe.
Tohe.
Thank you.
Well, I too want to extend my gratitude to Levi and Michelle for putting together this wonderful anthology of New Mexico poets. I moved away from New Mexico, but I still feel this very strong connection to the state, to the beauty that's there, and to the spirit of New Mexico. So I was very happy when Levi invited me to join the other poets in this anthology. The poem that I'm going to read is written because most of my family on both sides were weavers, and I'd never written anything about that. And so when this invitation came to send my work, this is one of the poems that I wanted to send. It's called How to Sell a Weaving. Trading post day and Masana gathers lightning and mountains be pulled from the sky and wove onto parallel lines, for she is part geometrician, part coyote. She buries her treasure in the cornfield damp from desert rains, still fresh from the memory of the loom, before she will walk to the trading post and get only half for the weight of mountains and lightning, half for woolly clouds spun into horizontal lines on her lap, half for her creation laid down one line at a time. But in her dwells an old Indian trick. She shakes off the sand and retains the dampness for the scale from which the trader will pay her. Full for the weight of mountains and lightning, full for woolly clouds spun into horizontal lines on her lap, full for her creation laid down one line at a time. Thank you. I hear that. Oh, the next reader is Shannon Webster, I believe is the last but not least reader.
And Shannon, make sure you unmute. There you go.
Unmute. Thank you. Mine's called simulacra, which is a word my daughter taught me and I had to look it up, but it's useful. Her first trip outside Pennsylvania, Natalie found a mounted jackalope in a curio shop near Tucumcari and fixed on that whimsical invention of an imaginative taxidermist. No cute bunny, the genuine jackrabbit, christened by Mark Twain for its mule ears, is a long-eared, rangy hare, angular of head, calculating of eye, that once belonged to an antelope. When in later years she'd tell the story, she'd come to believe that she saw that she believed that she saw one in the high desert near Santa Fe. Can we tell a fiction so often that we own it true, or even become the main actor in someone else's story? We tell children myths and tales of dragons, sorcerers, and elves for moral formation or to broaden a world, but draw what from a disfigured hair, from a living room mantle in Nazareth? A jackalope looks at Natalie with critical eye. Stories mark our place in the world. We are not so distinct from the tale. They warn, remember, keep us alive. And we are shaped by our bravest dreams. If we are, the stories we tell, should they not be worthy of us and we of them, of the days we pulled from the stone a sword, walked on water, and wrestled God to a draw, all for the sake of a blessing? Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. So I'll read the last poem from this segment this evening. So once again, thank you so much, Jules and John, for hosting us. Thank you, Levi, for the invitation to co-edit. There were many surprises along the way, and I'm so glad they resulted in this beautiful collection, not only of human beings, but of poetry. And I also want to thank Ana Gallegos and Lilia McEnany, who were formerly with the Museum of New Mexico Press, who really not only helped us get the book across the finish line, but also helped us with this part of it, which is getting the book out into the world. So once again, poetry anthologies from New Mexico make great gifts. So for folks who are far away and missing home, or folks who are right here and want to stay. Okay. So this poem is called Trail. You think of the rattlesnake sunning on the trail at a time you thought too cold for snakes. How long since you'd hiked, since the dogs ran off leash. Maybe it's never too cold for snakes again. She, always a she, didn't rattle by the time she coiled, you were past her. You remembered the slopes of the Florida mountains, where your next door neighbor hunted geodes and jasper, turquoise and agates he polished into pendants and rings. You and your friends thought you could be rockhounds in the alley between your houses. Your brothers and their friends, boys and boys, circled in boulder shadow, the boulder marking the trail shift from steps and stones to dirt and scree. They shouted, stomped. From your tricycle on the paved path below, they were dancers, warriors, quiver, rock. Later, all piled in the back of the truck, Dad going hard over the bumps to make us laugh. I asked between bumps, what were you guys doing up there? Danny found a rattlesnake. You were just over the border and decades from Ciudad Juarez, from women and girl bodies in deserts. Maybe it was already happening. Maybe a part of you already feared all those boys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John and Jules.
Thank you, Michelle, too.
Yes, thank you, Michelle and Levi and all the readers. It was really, really memorable, and I'm so glad we have the recording. So, yeah, thank you.
And we put the book link in the chat, but do you want to say, is there a website, Michelle, like for if somebody's listening on YouTube, how to find it? Or John, you want to hold up the book again, too?
Sure.
And I'm sure you could find it through New Mexico Press, Museum Press, or Amazon, but really support your local bookstores. I've seen it around in a lot of bookstores around here.
And if you are far away and you can't get into a local bookstore, you can always order through bookshop.org, and you can choose which local bookstore gets a portion of that sale. So it's a great alternative to Amazon. And I will find the website and say it in a moment. In the chat.
Yeah, that's great too. And I don't know if Levi is still, I'm trying to find him on here, but anything else?
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michelle. Such a great job keeping the reading going. And thank you, John and Jules, for hosting this event.
I really like your system of one poet introducing the next. That worked really well.
Yeah. And all the poets that presented tonight, I mean, really healing and nurturing. And I never realized how much I need poetry. I know I need poetry in my life, but I never realized how much I need it until I'm in a room full of poets, whether it's in person or through Zoom. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And it was really thrilling that we got a chance to hear Coral Dawn Bernal's voice. That was really a special.
Thank you.
And
I want to thank Sharon Ord Warner, actually, who reached out to contribute Coral's poetry to the anthology. And to make sure that she could be part of this reading in spirit and through her family as well. So Sharon Ord Warner, thank you. Thanks a lot. She's retired now, but she was a director of creative writing at UNM for many years.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I will stop the recording. And thank you all again.
Thank you.